Marshall McLuhan's "The Medium is the Message" is one of the most famous quotes when understanding the mechanics of how society develops, because it effectively highlights how the technology that delivers any message will always have more impact than whatever the message is. Think about it, what's affected the way you live your life more, a text message or the existence of the phone in general? In fact, a good chunk of university life was all about waiting for emails on your fucking phone.
You see, it doesn't much matter what you say on the telephone. The telephone as a service is a huge environment, and that is the medium. And the environment affects everybody. What you say on the telephone affects very few. And the same with radio or any other medium. What you print is nothing compared to the effect of the printed word. The printed word sets up a paradigm, a structure of awareness which affects everybody.
Technology has an incredibly important sociological dimension to it because it doesn't just add to your life, it actively reorganizes it. And in The Expanse, the effects of technology on a sociological level is explored to an extreme when it comes to how life in space would fundamentally change and transform culture, politics, traditions, communications, and the very essence of human identity in the deepest existential levels.
Some things in life are worth waiting for.
You're defacing it, Picasso. 17 Martians died in that attack.
Do you want to do something about it?
Hold on a second. Is this your messed up way of telling me you're sorry?
Was it messed up?
You stripped it right down to its nuclei.
Oh.
Due to the geography of space, human society has reconstructed itself in relations to three places. Earth, which is an overpopulated, poverty-stricken place where over half the population is dependent on government welfare due to the lack of available work, and is also dependent on recycling machines in order to avoid being overwhelmed by its own filth. Everyone resents people from Earth because it's the only place where anyone can breathe free air, see an ocean, and look into the sky, but this romantic value is also what makes it so ideologically potent, especially for Earthers who wish to protect their home from war and terrorism. It's constructed a highly patriotic society.
I pressured mine to join the Marines, or I wouldn't pay for his education, like mine and my father's. So he did what was expected. That's why he was in Callisto during the insurrection. That took his life.
While Mars is an entire collection of the best and brightest, from people from all sorts of nomadic cultural backgrounds like East Indians, Chinese, and Texans, and they're all motivated by the collective aim to transform Mars into a habitable planet. Due to this collective dedicated goal, there is civilization that has become culturally homogeneous in spite of their original massive cultural differences. While belters are people living harsh lives in the asteroid belt doing dangerous and undesirable work like mining and hauling ice.
Hey, Patch, how's the arm?
Looking good. Still got a few nerves though.
And because of the effect of technology, they develop their own civilization, because it's an entire society of people who grow up with weaker gravity, so they're taller but with weaker bones and muscles.
Stay calm.
Hands be.
They also have their own language, which includes non-verbal communication due to the limits of old spacesuits. They have tattoos that signify their cultural identity, specifically around the neck, because that's where old helmets used to burn people. But they aren't recognized as their own political body because the inner planets depend on them too much to operate.
Do you know how old you are?
19, I think. Yeah, 2 years.
Even a sense of time comes from them.
Earth is an empire in decline, while Mars is an empire on the rise, but currently they rival each other, so tensions are high, while belters are ignored and exploited by both. Therefore, a culture of resentment has been developed that causes their populace to inherit traditions, cultural identities, and political actions orientated around antagonisms with each other.
Belters get thirsty, OPA fans the flames, and Mars gets the excuse they've always wanted to sweep in and pacify the station.
Everyone is suffering somehow and sees the other as being privileged in some ways, therefore everyone becomes perpetrators of themselves.
And now we have a chance to assure the future of the Earth, and he's shitting himself because he's afraid the history books won't be flattering enough.
The Expanse is a show with an immensely diverse cast, but ethnicity is not the source of political inequalities. It's all associated towards the different social consequences of technology. the show is similar to a diagnosis in the way it explores people. None of these effects could be avoided, and it's not all bad because the pressure of these effects also brings the best out of people and create new solidarities. But it also spotlights one of the biggest disputes in the sociological discourse, which is the social constructivism versus technological determinism argument. What has more influence over the other in terms of direction? Technology or the demands of people? The theorist Raymond Williams critiqued Marshall McLuhan's technological deterministic angle by highlighting that technology is not an autonomous agent of change, it is influenced by social uses from people, because technological development is not an isolated process, it is subject to social changes too. The Epstein drive was created by someone who wanted to provide an invention that would allow Mars to negotiate their independence. Drugs were created to counteract the effects of space. And there is the protomolecule, an alien technology that originates from the unknown, but is utilized for different purposes by man, from space weapons to space travel. The impact of humanity on the direction of technology is equal to the effect of technology on people. And one of the biggest moments is kind of a manifestation of this revelation. Naomi hands the protomolecule to Fred Johnson because it will give the bout the political relevance it desperately needs. The protomolecule highlights the symbiotic tension by discarding any solid identity to what the technology is. It has no solid moral characteristic that you can identify. We watch Holden change from myopically seeing it as whale that he has to hunt, to willing to die to save the protomolecule station. It kills Julie and Miller, but it also manifests them into a new existential place in what seems to be the afterlife. It can destroy mankind as much as it can open a new frontier for mankind to hopefully thrive in. It has no predictable continuity, and therefore it shows how people create those continuities for themselves, which is reflected by how politics and society rearranges itself once again, because the political identity margins shift from people seeing themselves as the victims of each other to becoming the victims of this technology.
We are all victims of the same catastrophe.
By the second half of Season 3, this conflict becomes the central focal point of the story. It is the direction of technology crashing into the meaning of man that ultimately endangers both, because these forces are equally influential with each other. And that's one of the wonders of the show. It's really quite beautiful because it doesn't have a misanthropic view on humanity, which has quietly become a standard in overall modern fiction. Protogen isn't just trying to control the protomolecule's destructive power for world domination or just because they're evil. They're genuinely sincere in their endeavor to understand and push human development into a new frontier. Even though their methods are pretty immoral, the story is willing to have a whole spectrums of politics fairly represented by characters that it equally loves, from Christian Avasarala's pro-Earth sentiments, Naomi's pro-Belter beliefs, Alex's pride as a Martian, and Miller's absolute irreverence for everything.
Take your OPA bullshit back to the Medina. Wait for the revolution and all the rest of the victims.
Everyone is an equal participant to social change, and that's an important aspect of what technology is. It's a complicated sociological process, and I think the show absolutely captures it beautifully.
What are you doing here? You live here or something?
Yeah, I got a flat next door.
Next door's a brothel.
Yeah,